to COABE's Meet the Author video series, where we sit down with the authors from our latest edition of the COABE Journal to hear a little bit about what they wrote and why they wrote it. My name is Kristen Hempel, and I'm COABE's Region 1 representative. Today, I'm very excited to be here with two representatives from New Mexico. We have Tobe Cullen Bott-Lyons and René Guillaume from New Mexico College and New Mexico University, respectively. They are the authors of Launching Pads and Home Bases, Peer Support and College Success for High School Equivalency Students. And it is featured in our recent issue, Programs Succeed When Learners Lead. To start us off, please introduce yourselves to our listeners, telling us a little bit about your work in adult education.
All right, so I guess I'll go first. My name is Tobe Bott-Lyons, and I work at Northern New Mexico College in Espanola, New Mexico, and have been here for about 10 years. And over the course of my career, I've had various positions in and out of adult ed or working with adult learners. Currently, I am the director of an Upward Bound grant, so I work actually with high school students now. But in the past, I've worked as a GED teacher, I've run HSE programs, and then I've also had some really powerful experiences working on the college side with students who were in HSE programs and transitioning into college.
Mm-hmm. You know, similar to Tobe, also worked in numerous student support services programs prior to transitioning into my faculty role. So right now I serve as an associate professor in a Department of Higher Education, student affairs. And so my areas of research really have gravitated toward adult education. And so Tobe and I have had the good fortune of doing a handful of studies and some work in this area.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you two have a diverse background in education and in adult learning specifically. So I'm curious what motivated you to write this article for the COABE Journal?
I'll go after Tobe on this one.
Okay, you want me to go first? Okay, so I think as I mentioned before, as a practitioner, I was kind of introduced to college access work through my work with high school equivalency students, right? And originally that started with seeing, students complete their HSE credential and try to go to college, and saw some of those struggles, and that led me to want to work in higher education. And then in higher education, I had sort of the opposite experience, is that I got to see students who were thriving and doing really well. And I got to see some examples of programs that were doing a really good job of supporting students in college. And that sort of led me academically to be interested in this idea of high school equivalency students in college, right? I think when we talk about public education and our public education system, I think adult ed gets left out. And I think especially in conversations about college access and college success, I think a lot of folks on the higher ed side and in the academy sort of assume that once a student leaves the pipeline they're not necessarily coming back. But those of us who work in adult ed or on college campuses, especially like broad access institutions, we know there are a growing number of college students, right? It's like a huge population on college campuses are HSE students. So that was the real motivation, is to start bringing some attention to the needs of and the potential and the promise of high school equivalency students in college.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, it really was a marriage of some of the areas that Tobe had professional experience in with some of the areas that I had professional experience in: student success, collegiate environments, transitioning. And so we were able to marry some of the work and the research I'd been doing with a really important population. And I think Tobe had talked about shedding light on HSE students, an area that is grossly understudied and researched. And so really, I think that's where this was born from. Some of the research Tobe was doing, some of the research I was doing, and melding it together.
Well, I agree with you. I feel like the field is thirsty
Mhm,
for more information on best practices
mhm,
and what's working, and as well as those stories of success. And so your
mhm.
ability to capture those and share those with us, and what's the story behind that success, and how you've identified and addressed needs is pretty useful. So maybe I just led into the next question, but I'm just curious what you're hoping that adult practitioners, how they'll benefit from reading your article and how it's going to benefit their learners.
I'll start with this one really briefly and then jump in, Toby, where you'd like. I think to us, one of the biggest takeaways was the important role HSE programs play in supporting their students, in particular, developing that peer support group and the ways in which that peer support group was able to support each other, not just throughout the duration of their HSE programs, but as they transitioned into post-secondary ed and in post-secondary ed. I think the other thing that was a big takeaway for me as it relates to not just learners, but maybe practitioners is the important role that HSE programs can continue to play even after their students have left and transitioned, right? And I think recognizing that that relationship and that level of support not only doesn't have to end there, but probably shouldn't, right? I think there can be kind of this continuous loop that occurs. And so I'll pass it on over to Toby now.
No, I think that was, yeah, very well said, is the role of HSE programs like throughout the process, right? Is like part of what we found is that it starts in the program and continues continues well after the students left the program, right? Is that this was a case study of one particular place and particular program, and really saw that the success they were having, right? Because all the students that were interviewed in this all were well into college, right? This was like not like they were successful getting them into college, but these were students that were doing well, had good grades, had completed multiple semesters. And I think as part of that is like the culture and climate piece of the program really kind of came out in creating what René was talking about, right? This peer support and the idea of the launching pad, right, is a lot about the how it feels to be in the program and the relationships that are developed within the program, right? I think oftentimes the focus is on curriculum, right? It's the curriculum preparing them with the skills, it's the curriculum getting them so and so and so. And a lot, this article and this study really looked at like the relationships and the practices and behaviors that helped lead students to college.
Well, it feels to me like, oh, did you want to add something? I'm sorry,
No,
Renee.
no, 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 no. I did.
Okay.
No.
It feels to me like you all are really trying to, take down some silos here and helping us to understand that our timelines, they're overlapping, and it's what a great gift to really help the field to internalize that what we're doing now, not just academically, but socially, has these impacts that continue on and help students succeed well beyond their time with us. And I also love that idea that, our role continues, and really trying to understand and embrace that. Those are all pretty big concepts that you're putting out there. So what are you thinking, or what are you hoping that readers are going to take away from this? What's an action step, or what's the key message you want them to have?
Shall I go? Oh, Renee's
After
ready.
you,
Go.
no,
Go,
no,
you
after you,
got it.
Toby.
Okay.
I think for me, one of the key messages, especially given the way that we went about it, right? We focused on culture, climate, and that the social environment. And so Toby alluded to this earlier, but looking at what HSE programs do and how they do it in ways that really hasn't been done much before. The paper itself is written from a student perspective, right? There weren't, in-depth interviews and analyses of program staff or administrators at the university looking at how and in what ways they view it. It was from the student perspective. And so my hope is, as individuals engage with this work, and hear what the students see value in, see the importance of culture, creating a climate of inclusiveness and support, the importance of factors really socially, And so my hope is as they engage with it and hear from the students themselves and read the direct, snippets from their transcripts, that they're able to go back and focus on maybe areas that are really important, but might be missed when you're looking at budget, or when you're looking at curriculum, when you're looking at not losing sight of the importance of that student perspective. That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think building on that is, yeah, there's like the philosophical, the approach to the work that emerges from here. And there are some concrete things within the article, like there's some concrete findings that I think could be helpful to HSE programs. Things like doing group advising and having students entering into college as cohorts. And speaking to your point about the silos and like the length of relationships, is some of it was students talking about they always felt like they could go back to the program, right? It really was an open door, and it was the first place when they were in trouble or struggling. It was, and I think a lot of that has to do with like it was one of their first really positive educational experiences. And one of the unique things about that is most of them don't go, a lot of students don't go into an HSE program saying, I want to go to college from here, right? And most of the students in this study had no intention of going to college when they came, but it was the experience in the program that led them there. And just a couple other examples I want to throw out, just like that could be takeaways, are that are described more in depth, and again, by the students a lot of the times, are like, can be really simple things like an alumni wall that shows HSE students in college, right, in the program, but also advertises that to people in the college who walk by and start to understand that HSE programs and students are being successful in college. And also just the program showing up to new student orientation and like welcoming the students to new student orientation at the college, right? Saying like, we're still here, we got you, congratulations, let's take a picture and then go on your journey, right? But it's a very subtle way of maintaining those relationships, and also like helping the students maintain the relationships with each other that are going to propel them through. Because I think that's kind of really the core finding, is that students supporting each other through the relationships they build is really a big part of the success for them in college.
I'm smiling over here because I keep thinking, I've been talking about, it's how important it is for there to be a soft handoff. And what you're saying is, let's not hand them off, right? We're continuing to be by their side, just, more on the sidelines and the cheerleaders and, the safety net or whatever it is. And so I love that. And, as a program administrator, I'm always juggling so many priorities. And what I'm hearing you say, we got to get the testing done, we got to hit the MSGs, all these things, but you're saying, listen, focus on this culture and the social environment, the climate, and those other things will come, I don't want to say more easily, but it will increase attitude and investment and access in some ways that really help learners see themselves in different ways, have more long-term goals or more educational goals and all of that. And so that really, by focusing on culture, climate, social environment, we actually are more effective at achieving these other, quantifiable markers that we're supposed to get to. And, that's amazing. So I really appreciate, the study that you did and the insights. And I definitely wrote down some notes for my program based on your article, several of which you've mentioned. But before we wrap up, I just want to ask, are there any additional comments that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Short of thanking y'all for this opportunity, I think both of us, having had an opportunity to do research in this area, to engage in this type of conversation, I think has been nothing short of amazing, and just encouraging individuals to read the manuscript, if for no other reason than to hear the student stories, student stories of success, student stories of hard work, perseverance, and we just look forward to feedback from individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank COABE. I like doing this study, the intention wasn't for COABE, right? But the first place I thought of was like, this is such a wonderful home for this kind of work, because I know the community that is COABE, and all bringing together all the practitioners and the people doing this work, and to be able to share this back is really meaningful. I think it really honors the spirit of what we were trying to capture.
Well, thank you all. Centering learner voice, putting out opportunities for learners to be leaders, that is definitely something that is, core to my passion and my commitment to adult education. And so I loved seeing that same passion in your article, and hearing from the learners about the impact that it had in terms of their long-term success. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me today, for us to learn together. We really, truly appreciate your dedication to the field of adult education, and are grateful for the impact that your work is going to make on the lives of learners around the country. So encourage you to keep up the good work, and we're looking forward to hearing what other great things come out of New Mexico. For those of you who are tuning in, if you have not already read the article, I really do encourage you to do so by accessing the program Succeed When Learners Lead edition of the COABE Journal at www.coabe.org. You can click on the journal tab and buy individual articles, or you can buy the issue in its entirety. So hopefully you will do that. If you've not already done so, definitely block out some time to read this journal article. Take care, everyone.